to provide funds for those in need. You continue to volunteer to deliver groceries and prescriptions to vulnerable people. You continue to provide much needed medical supplies. And some of you continue to be on the front lines, risking your own lives to save others. Yes, you are amazing. And that's when I think the audio became a little bit better for everybody. So that was the video introduction that some of you might have missed. And, you know, actually, before I start, Faith Kruger, happy 61st birthday. She's joining us as she's eating her birthday dinner. And I want to start off just saying how proud I am of all of you. Who would have known when we were in Seattle together 13 weeks ago that we would be where we are now? And I am just so proud of the clubs in this district and how they have adapted to this new normal. On behalf of the district, I apologize for not training you to adapt to COVID-19 and what we are now all experiencing. But I don't think any of us envisioned what's happening. And I was on a meeting on Monday night, and yet another Zoom meeting, one of the 5 or 6 hours of them I'm on every day, with the current governors-elect that were part of planning PETS on Monday night. And I referred to our class of governors-elect as the sandwich class. We're between the governor's class that started their year out normally and had to pivot dramatically. And we're between the class of incoming governors who are not going to probably be able to experience PETS in person. And hopefully during the coming the following Rotary year, there will be vaccines and life will get back to a little bit more of what we were used to. But as a governor-elect and you as presidents-elect, we're in the sandwich. We're the meat in the middle of the sandwich. We're going to have to continue with the pivot. We're going to have to take what our current presidents have been able to put into place, adapting to this new normal as it changes, as our state and provincial medical health officers rules roll out, not get through, but succeed in this Rotary year as Rotary is changing. And Rotary is changing so dramatically in a lot of really positive ways. And you're a part of that. And you're going to be a part of being that meat in the middle of the sandwich that is going to take Rotary back after there is a vaccine for COVID-19 to an even more incredible, dynamic, more connected organization than we ever would have been if we hadn't had to face what we've gone through in the last 13 months. So I thank you for all of that. I thank you for the challenges that you've gone through, the challenges that you're experiencing planning the coming Rotary year, and we'll get through this together. We will, because that's what Rotarians do. We respond, and we are people of action. So just a couple of notes since PETS. I plan on still continuing to do my club visits as scheduled. Pat, I believe, has sent the schedules out to all of the clubs. I'm prepared to adapt that. I plan on attending your clubs virtually for what would have been my normal club visits. If the travel bans are lifted before the end of the coming Rotary year, I promise I will come to meet you in person, but my club visits will continue virtually. I also, traditionally, the governor attends a board meeting prior to their club visits. I still want to attend a board meeting with you. I don't have, it doesn't have to be in concert with my scheduled club visits, but I will still want to attend a board meeting, and I ask you to invite me to those. For club installations, which is a really important part of a club Rotary year, I encourage you to be inventive and imaginative and plan a special celebration, especially honoring your outgoing president, who has had to face a Rotary year that no Rotary Club president has had to do in the past, and celebrate the successes of the club and the successes of what you've accomplished and what you're going to accomplish in the coming Rotary year. So plan the incoming installations. There is a misconception in some clubs that the installations have to be performed by either the current governor or the incoming governor. I encourage you to ask somebody that has inspired you in Rotary to be the installing officer at your club installation event, and somebody that's important to you. It's your installation as the incoming club president and the installation of your board of directors, and I encourage you to think of somebody that inspired you as a Rotarian. So it doesn't have to be a past district governor from our district. Any of them are happy to do it if they are the person. And we're happy to also share some installation oaths of offices and past practices if you choose somebody that I've been to installations where it hasn't been a Rotarian performing the installation of office. So be inventive, make it special, make it personal, because that's what Rotary does. We encourage your feedback about pets, what didn't work, what worked for you, what you enjoyed. We're going to ask you at the end of the session what more you want from Rod and his training team and me as we move forward in the next couple of months before we start the coming Rotary year. And again, I salute you all for your service to Rotary, what your clubs are doing. The district COVID matching grant program was a brainchild of the district board of directors. And I think it was an amazing opportunity and an impetus to get the clubs engaged and active and connected to your communities, which is what we should be doing. So thank you. If there's any questions, Roger, I'm throwing it back to you.
I noticed no one has posted any questions. Does anyone want to chime in? Just say question for Carol in your chat and I'll let you in.
I actually just have one question. In our club, I don't get to be involved at all in the installation. They're not even asking me. I'm just not, the incoming president doesn't have any part of it. Is that not normal?
I would suggest that's probably not normal. It might be normal for your club, and you have.
Yeah, I think it's normal for our club. Yeah.
But you can create a new normal and maybe start the conversation, Megan.
Well, I think what I might do is create the new normal for the next thing, for the one that's coming in after me, because they've already done all the planning. It's already done. But
yeah,
I might for the next gal that's coming in. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Anyone else? Seems Faith has a question. Go ahead, Faith.
I'm sorry, it was actually just a statement. This year they were planning the installation, but historically for our club, it has been the outgoing president that pretty much runs the installation, and they pretty much thank everybody. And then at the very end, the incoming takes over, but it has been organized by the outgoing president. And so I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think it's just whatever your club is used to. I'm sorry, it was just a statement I put in chat. I didn't mean it as a question.
And every club has their own culture, but I threw that out as just a discussion point for your club to consider.
And Sheila had a comment. Sheila there?
Roger, I can answer that question regarding the pet speakers. If you go to pnwpets.org and look in the drop-down menus, the speakers are there and they are all posted there. You can download those, you can view them and use it as a club meeting if you'd like to. When we first went online, I used the presentation by Jordan Harrison on equity as our first club meeting speakers video. So they are there and they're available to you.
Good, thank you. Do you have a follow-up there, Sheila? No? Rosemary had a comment. Rosemary?
I'm just wondering if I heard correctly that you're thinking there won't be a pets training for the next president-elect?
There will be a pets training. However, they are planning both a virtual and the traditional pets. If there is not a vaccine, a viable vaccine before mid-February next year, the pets with 700 people would not be able to happen. And I'm not forecasting medical health officers' orders, but I doubt that will happen. I know that the Rotary Board of Directors has banned all travel until the end of the Rotary year. But we're, this is a work in progress. We're going to have to work with what happens as medical science progresses with the transmission of COVID.
And Rosemary, I can tell you that the operating committee for pets is meeting tomorrow to have some conversations around what the implications are as we move forward. So while Carol's comments are well placed, and it's certainly a challenge looking at something to happen on the ground for 2021. It's one of the plans that's going forward as well as options.
Good. Now, Megan had a follow-up. Megan? Hello? Megan? Oh, okay. Are there any other questions or observations?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know, it happens to me all the time. I'm not able to mute or I can't unmute. My question around it, Carol, you mentioned that the board has banned or said the no travel until at least until the end of the year. What does that encompass? The reason I'm asking is because we have an international trip that we postponed in April, and we postponed it till November.
The Rotary International travel ban is for all Rotary paid travel. And I can actually share with everybody the verbiage that Rotary uses on its travel bans, but
Okay.
If it's not Rotary paid travel, you can do whatever your local medical officers allow and what visa requires.
Okay.
Everything
So we're paying for our own travel, so it doesn't count.
It wouldn't be in conflict with the Rotary paid travel, but
okay. But it's good to know that for sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Annette, you had a question or an issue.
Yeah, so I belong to Rotary Central, and we have a couple of higher was sort of leveled Rotarians in our club, like Dean Roars and Bill Robson, and there was some suggestion that it would be like, they themselves are not allowed to, they have a different, I guess, set of standards for meeting in public and so on. And I'm just wondering, is there a sense that Rotary should be seen to be held above standard? And for example, we thought maybe potentially we would be able to meet in a park for installation, for example, if we could practice social distancing and make sure that we're adhering to all the public health guidelines. But then there was some messaging that said that just wouldn't, maybe Rotary wouldn't look like they were adhering to a higher standard of safety, or we didn't want to be looking like we were in bad form, for example.
I'll speak to that, and then I think Rod has something to say on that. I personally am adhering 100% to our provincial medical health officers' orders, and no public gatherings in excess of 50, and according to the we don't know the rules of the stage 2 order that's coming out next week, but at the moment you should only be increasing your social bubble by a couple of people. So having a club meeting with 20 club members and their bubbles would not be safe and would be not in compliance with the medical health officer's orders. So I would suggest that would not be appropriate. Rod, do you want to add to that?
Sure, and I just want to reinforce, it's the local authority, the provincial authority or state authority or a city authority. If the city authority is superseding what's going on with your state in terms of keeping people in lockdown, Rotary cannot give you a direction, because Rotary is in more than 200 countries and geographic regions, and each of them has their own phased approach on how this is working. So follow the directions of your provincial or state health authorities or the health authorities in your region. The second piece of this is, I want to clarify, Rotary travel that is funded by Rotary has been canceled till the end of the year. Both Dean, as past Rotary International Vice President and currently chairing a task force, and Bill, as a Rotary officer working in Zone 24, will not be traveling and will not be going to meetings that would be paid for by Rotary normally for them, because that is all canceled. So there's again levels of concern, but I think prudent is what I would say. Be prudent. Don't push things too quickly.
I totally get that, and I'm just wondering if we of the district of 50/50 want to just maybe step it up a bit and and say that we want to be seen. Rotary does not want to, we don't want blowback, right, on our service organization. We want to be able to be held to a standard that the public would see us as being responsible and not to be seen in sort of a, I know there's a lot of like social shaming that's going on around meeting in public and so on. So I'm totally for continuing the virtual kind of meetings. I just wondered if that was something else that other people were sort of facing a decision around. Maybe their groups are smaller and they feel they can start meeting more in public places. I'm just opening up a discussion, that's all.
So I think there's a couple of things there. First of all, every Rotary club is autonomous. So the Rotary district doesn't make decisions around what's happening with Rotary clubs. Secondly, we do meet in more than one jurisdiction, and each jurisdiction will have its own rules and regulations. As I said earlier, I think you want to be prudent. And so if you interpret that to mean let's exceed the standard for your Rotary club, I think that's perfectly acceptable. I would certainly caution against rushing back to public meetings, to meetings where you're getting groups of people together. Even when the restrictions are loosened, make sure that you're doing that with face masks, with gloves, with social distancing, with all of the things that you can put in place to make sure that your Rotarians and those around them are safe. So again, it's up to the club, but be prudent.
Good. Thank you, Rod. I'll have one more question and then we'll bounce over to Rod's presentation, and then we can open the floor again to questions if I haven't answered. Edward, you had a question, a final question?
Yes, hello. I was just I wanted a clarification because in what some clubs, I guess, are in Canada, and then some clubs in Washington, with Washington being in different phases of what we're going through. I know that with a lot of clubs, there's more than 50 people, but there are clubs that are less than 50, and even with, let's just say, spouses, it's still less than 50 people in certain aspects. So my question would be is this something Rotary would prefer us to not do, a installation just for the protection of everybody, as well as, there's elderly members as well, and we don't want to expose anybody to anything either. I just wanted to get a clarification if in general Rotary would prefer us to not do it, or to, do it within reasons.
I think, my friend, Edward, the part of the problem that we have is your medical health officer in your county is giving different instructions than the medical health officer in British Columbia is. So that's why the district cannot impose a standard. I agree with the prior comment that we want to, as Rotarians, probably impose a standard that is at a higher level than what our health authorities are telling us. In British Columbia, our medical health officer has told us you should not meet, period, with anybody outside of your home social bubble. And that we're going into our phase 2, our initial transition out of that restriction next week. And the medical health officer today in the statement said, you might want to add 2 more people to that family social bubble, because you're adding those 2 people and their whole social bubble to your social bubble. So by having a meeting with 10 of your Rotary members, you're increasing that social bubble 10 times. And that would not be permitted, given the BC government's medical health officers guidelines today.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
It gives me better understanding, yes.
Better for clarification. Rod, are you sort of concurring with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's be prudent. Let's not push this. There are stories out there of folks that pushed it at the beginning and ended up with big issues around COVID-19 spreading through their organization or group. So, this is a phased approach as we come back in. And just because somebody says we can doesn't necessarily mean we should.
Thank you.
Before we jump on, Kelly has been trying to ask a question for a bit. Over to you, Kelly. Oh, Kelly's not muted. Unmute.
You hear me?
Yeah, now you can, Kelly. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I was trying to get through there, but I'm not sure why. Anyway, I think a lot of my questions been answered. We're a smaller club, and I wonder if Rod is going to speak, or if others are going to speak to what they're doing to maintain the interest in these Zoom meetings. We have our meetings every second week, and we had the first one was very well attended. The second one, we had a speaker, not so much, and unfortunately, there wasn't sufficient participation apparently for our last week's meeting, and so people tend to like to get together in person. I think in our small club, there's only 22 members, and I've been listening to what both Rod and Carol saying, so I'm going to back off from what my original hope was, to have some open meetings where we only have 10 or 12 people using the distancing. But given that, then how do we bring that excitement back into a Zoom meeting? Because a lot of people, some of them older, I think, are starting to feel that it's just not quite the same as just looking at pictures of people on a Zoom camera versus being in touch with them and being able to look directly in their eyes and speak to them. So just looking for some ideas here.
So Kelly, I will take that under advisement, and what I would suggest is I will try and find folks that will speak to that issue, and we'll make one of that one of our training sessions on that very issue, keeping
Please do. Please.
keeping your membership engaged during Zoom meetings as opposed to in-person meetings. I know some clubs have been having tremendous success. One of the things this does is it allows you to have speakers from all over the Rotary world. And so it does give you opportunities to bring different voices into your club that you might not otherwise have the opportunity to hear. But let's look at that as a potential session for later on in our training cycle.
Thank you. Just one other quick point. It was mentioned about the speaker for our installation, and you mentioned about inspirational speakers. And I just, do they have to be a Rotarian?
No.
Okay, because my wife was, you know, it's my inspiration, so I thought I should at least put that in there in case she ever listens to this.
Would you hear anything she said, Kelly?
That's my problem, Rod.
Anyway, I think just before we move on to Rod, I just wanted to address Kelly, even though I'm the facilitator. Our club just recently had a meeting with the Jamaican club, one of the Jamaican clubs in Manly. And it was fabulous and lots of well attended. And we learned a lot about their club and about the things they were doing. And I encourage all of the clubs to reach out to some of the foreign clubs and learn what they're doing and to join them and join theirs.
How did you get the handle and how did you get the information to be able to do that?
I'm not sure, but
where did you look to find that out?
I know our club president organized it all, so I'll have to ask him how he got a hold of that thing. But there is I believe in Rotary International on their website, there is a list of different clubs that you can email. Is that right, Carol?
That is correct.
Yeah, we'll get that list. There's an RI website that has all of the clubs connections that are meeting internationally, and we will get that out to all of you in the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Anyway, I think we'll stop the questions there for a moment. You'll have another chance in 10, 15 minutes and throw the floor open to Rod and his presentation. Over to you, Rod.
Thanks very much, Roger, and thanks everybody for being here and remaining engaged, and we appreciate that. As Kelly said, many of us prefer the in-person meetings. You get to read people's body language and get a little bit better sense of who they are. But in the present times, we're doing the best we can, and we really appreciate that each of you has taken time to be with us tonight. So 2 topics before we come to the end of our session tonight. The first is insurance. And the reason we're going to talk about that is, as a club president, like many things in Rotary, you do not need to be the expert on insurance. You do, however, have to be aware of the insurance and how it applies to your club, both in event insurance, also in directors insurance, officers and directors insurance, and make sure that you're compliant with the insurance policies when you're conducting business as the president of your Rotary Club. This is one area. We just talked about how regulations are different in Washington State and British Columbia. Well, insurance is different in Washington State and British Columbia as well when we come to the Rotary Club. All of you in Washington State are covered by the Rotary Master Policy. You pay for that when you pay your dues to Rotary International, and every club in the continental United States is covered by that policy. Those of us whose clubs are based in Canada have a separate policy, and that is paid for by your clubs through the district. The district pays for it and then bills your club on a per member basis to cover the cost of carrying that insurance. So there are 2 different places to go to get the information you will need to make sure that you're compliant with the insurance. I'm going to do a screen share now and show you where each of you can find exactly what you'll need to be sure that you are compliant. So this is the Rotary District website, D5050.org. Okay, and this is the insurance tab. It falls under resources. So you can just scroll right down to that and click on insurance, and then you'll see there are sub-pages. And those sub-pages relate to summary of insurance for Canadian clubs, and also the insurance which is for US clubs, which is in this tab. And it gives you the contact information that you will need to log in to the Rotary site. For US clubs, this is Gallagher Insight, and rotary@agj.com, and Rotarian1 all in lowercase. And that is also on the website, so you won't have to remember that. It's there for you. And when you log in, you'll have all the information that you need from Gallagher. So there you are with all the subsets, quick links. When you click on any one of these quick links, it will generate a PDF, which you can then download and use to answer your questions. Or if you need a certificate of insurance, which you may need if you're hosting something where there are other people involved. You may need a certificate of insurance to rent a facility, for instance, to prove that you have insurance. And that's true whether you're in Canada or the US. That facility may require a certificate of insurance. You may also need to name someone as an additional insured. So for instance, you're having some kind of function and you're bringing in a third-party supplier to that function. You'll want to make sure that A, you have their certificate of insurance, or B, you have named them as an additional insured on your policy. Now, if you're not sure what the heck to do with insurance, we do have on that page, on the district webpage, all of the contacts that you need. Okay, so this is again, US clubs. Here are the contacts. They are right there on that page. You can go to them at any time you need them. And Canadian Rotary Clubs, same thing. There's your Canadian Rotary Club insurance contact, Harry Geddes from the Rotary Club of Chilliwack, and then Helen Liu, who works at Coast Capital Savings and manages our account for the insurance. Okay. So, policy coverage description. This is the US policy, active US Rotary Clubs. Okay. So you can see there that you are automatically insured, and it gives you the background of exactly who is insured and an overview on how you can do what you need to do with insurance. All right. There's also some policy coverage descriptions, which give you some indication of exactly what's covered. And you'll see there that there's the general liability policy for any Rotary meeting you're at, and directors and officers employment practices liability. And again, just like any insurance policy, if you do anything illegal or the club works in some way, there's some kind of malfeasance, you may not be insured. But as long as you make decisions which are prudent and reasonable, you are covered by this insurance policy. Prudent and reasonable, and I suggest the key there is documented. This is why having minutes of meetings and minutes of your directors' meetings is so important, so that any decision you make, you can refer back to and say, we made that prudently after good discussion, and it was not something that was done just ad hoc. So again, here's your disability liability insurance programs that outlines all of the bits and pieces for the policy. And there's a certificate of liability insurance. And when do you need these? Well, as I say, when you're renting something, you should also make sure that if you're having anything to do with liquor at any event, that you make sure that there's a rider put on your insurance policy. And that's easy to get. Those contacts that I gave you on that earlier page, again, they're on the Rotary District webpage. If you need a waiver that indicates you're having alcohol served at any of your events for sale, it's a good idea to have that rider. It shouldn't cost you anything, and there shouldn't be an issue with it, but you want to make sure that you have it. Canadian Club Presidents-elect. This is the document that's been scanned and uploaded onto the district website, and again, gives you all of the contact information. It gives you the limits for the policy, tells you where it's covered. And when I said earlier that Canadian clubs get insurance in Canada, US clubs get insurance in the US, you will notice that if you're a Canadian club and Rotarians are traveling on Rotary business to the US, or vice versa, US club traveling to Canada, your coverage extends with that. It's where your club is based that determines where your coverage is based, but not where the coverage extends. Okay, notice there's no coverage for travel in Mexico or other countries on that Canadian policy. So there it is. There's a very brief overview of the insurance policies. And as I say, you should not necessarily consider that you need to be the expert on insurance in your Rotary Club. If you have any questions on insurance, those contacts, Harry Geddes, the contacts through the Rotary policy, those are the folks to talk to. As with most things, when you talk insurance, better safe than sorry. It's better to ask the question and find out you don't need something than to discover later you should have had it and didn't. So, questions, comments, rude remarks. Roger?
Yeah, I don't see any questions at the moment. Does anyone have any questions on insurance or any other issues for Rod? Yes, Jim.
Just a
Yeah.
minute. Yeah.
Go ahead,
Just a
Jim.
question: is our insurance rate in Canada going to go up this year?
That would be real crystal balling on that, Jim. You know, insurance is an international commodity. It's not even a national commodity. So there are things that happen, natural disasters and all kinds of stuff that happens that creates a drain on the insurance system. And when that happens, the rates go up to cover it. So I don't know what's going to happen with the insurance, but we do shop it. We do look for the best deal out there that gives us coverage as we need at a price that we can afford.
It's again end of August. It's renewed every year. Is that right? Or September 1st in Canada?
I'm sorry, I don't recall the date of renewal, but the district looks after paying it and then collects back from the clubs.
Just historically, has that rate been fairly steady for the Rotary clubs?
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you.
And the biggest fluctuation, Jim, is really the number of Rotarians paying into it, because it's a fixed cost for the insurance, and then you know, we have to figure out how we're going to put that back in the club. So that's probably the biggest implication. I see there's a question from Shelley about COVID implications on insurance. I'm not an insurance expert. I don't know what the implications might be, other than you know, it's going to be a challenge moving forward.
There's also a question from Lisa. Lisa, go ahead. Trying to unmute you. There we go.
Yeah, I'm just trying to ask that each club has to get liability insurance for its directors.
Each club is autonomous and therefore must have insurance that covers its board of directors for liability insurance. In Canada, that insurance is provided through a carrier which is engaged at the district level, and then the clubs are named as insured parties in that and pay their way. In the US, as soon as you receive a charter from Rotary International, your coverage starts. Any active is the key word, any active Rotary club, one that has an active charter, is covered under the US policy, and obviously they have to have their dues paid up or their premiums will not be paid.
Good. Jim
So
Hines.
individual clubs do not need to seek insurance. They simply have to pay the insurance amount that's billed to them by the district.
Yeah, Jim Hines has a question. Jim?
Yeah, just curious about individual Rotary members going to events in the U.S. If we don't take out personal insurance and we get sick or something in the U.S., it could cost us a small fortune. So what does our insurance cover? Or do we need to get supplementary insurance over and above that, like Blue Cross or one of those?
Right. So Jim, I'm not an insurance expert. I think that's a question you should put to Harry Geddes or to our other contact. That is something that you'll want to be sure of before you go. Remember that this insurance policy is only designed to cover Rotarians on Rotary work. So if you were traveling to another country, whether it's the US at a district event, for instance, you're going to a district training event that's held in Bellingham, then you're moving on Rotary business into the US and you would be covered on the things that are covered under that policy. Personal health, probably not. And I would suggest you need to look at that just like you would if you're traveling on vacation to another country. But do check that with Harry.
When we went to Pets, I took out a Blue Cross weekend insurance policy to cover me while I was down there.
And I think there's wisdom in that.
Okay, thank you. That's what I need to know, yeah.
Okay, there's a question from Shelley McDonald. Shelley, over to you. Wherever you are.
Okay, Shelley, I think I understand. So again, it's that test of prudency. If the provincial regulations are that you must take certain measures, and your club determines that it can carry those measures forward in a rational and prudent way, and then follows through so that there's hand sanitization, there's masks being worn, whatever it might be that's appropriate under the regulations of the province, you will be seen to have taken due diligence to ensure that your event works properly and is as safe as possible. So at that stage, I would say you're covered because you've shown due diligence, you've shown prudence, and you've worked within that. So I think the answer there would be you should be covered.
It's a cautionary tale, though, isn't it? To be very careful in these times, particularly.
It is absolutely, and again, we'll want to be very cautious opening up and not jump back into this with both feet.
Thank you.
And John had a follow-up question. John?
Yes, you said the insurance coverage extended to where we were, and that would be from BC to Washington because I'm from BC. And then I saw a line there that said there's no insurance for Mexico or any other country. Any other country to me would include the United States. So how does that work?
I believe those are the exclusions after we got past covers you in the US, John, but again, I'll just have a quick look here.
I just saw the line as it zipped by and I went, whoops, where did that come from?
Coverage territory, it says claims that occur in Canada and US.
Okay.
Okay. Limited coverage is available for claims that occur worldwide, provided the claim is brought or a lawsuit is filed in Canada or the US. And then it says coverage territory for non-owned, and this is specific to automobiles, is limited to only Canada and the US. There's no coverage for travel in Mexico or other countries. So that was a specific disclaimer around automotive travel.
I went by so fast, I just didn't see what was above it.
Yep.
So
and again, I commend you to, as Carol has posted here, I'm sure you probably have an insurance person in your club or in your area, and maybe you should get them to just review it and advise your board to make sure that you're compliant. And that, again, your responsibility as a president, make sure you're compliant.
So Veronica had a follow-up question. Veronica?
Veronica's statement on the question is accurate. Yeah, I want to be certain that everybody understands you don't have to rush out and do anything to get this policy and put it in effect. What you have to do is make sure that you're paying your district dues and your amount that's billed to you from the district treasurer to cover the cost of Canadian insurance. And again, that is just calculated on it costs X, and we have Y number of people to pay that. X divided by Y comes up with the number that you'll pay. So everybody pays the same pro rata basis.
Okay, so that was my follow-up question, which is, do we see a separate line charge for it, or is it just built into the dues then? It would be built into the dues based on the number of people we have.
I'm sorry, I kind of missed that.
Sorry, that was my follow-up question. So then when we are getting the dues, we're not necessarily seeing a separate insurance charge. It's getting folded into the membership dues based on the size of our club.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Shelley had another question. No? Oh, you're all done? Okay.
I'm done.
Are there any other questions about insurance or liability?
So there's one there from me and about understanding that we don't have insurance for COVID. I don't know of any insurance that you can have for anything specific in terms of a disease. You can't have insurance for polio or insurance for any of those other sorts of things. But what the insurance would be is liability insurance if your club was sued because it went out and flouted regulations by a provincial or state authority, held an event, and then people became sick. You may be found, civil liability may be found, or even if you were flagrant, criminal liability could be found. So you're not insuring against COVID, but from the results of COVID and the results of the actions you took given the regulations around COVID. So no, you can't insure, in my understanding, against, quote, COVID.
Are there any other comments? I noticed Carol had a comment. Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, just to clarify the Canadian invoice. The Canadian clubs are invoiced, and it is 2 line items. There are the district dues and the Canadian insurance coverage. It comes on the same invoice, but it is 2 separate line items. So for the Canadian clubs, you'll see that when you get the district invoice in July. And just to caution as well, I think Rod mentioned it, but for Canadian clubs and the American clubs as well, if you own property, a storage building or anything like that, please check with your local insurance specialist to see if you need additional coverage for those items. As well, there are certain large event items that are now excluded from the policies. I'm not sure about the American policy, but I know in Canada, items like rib fests require a separate endorsement and would have an additional charge. So again, if you're having an event, check with your insurance specialist, make sure you're covered.
And that generally would be a rider on the current policy. It would be an additional fee for that rider, and it's usually based around the issue of size of event and alcohol, and that's one of the big factors. Anything you're doing with alcohol, you should be in touch with the insurance folks, tell them what the event is, and get a rider. Even though there may not be a charge for it, it is best for you to have that.
Good. Any other questions about insurance? If not, we can throw the floor open to any questions about club management, club leadership, or anything else you want to bounce off of Rod or Carol. Anyone?
We're also would like your questions and thoughts on what more training you'd like, what types of events. Would you like to just have a Q&A session every couple of weeks and learn by what your needs are versus prescribed learning? Rod has a couple of prescribed things he's going to get out to you, like the list of the club resource personnel that you met at PETS, and a couple of other items that have come up in the district sessions. But we want to know what you want from us.
Sheila, I'm sorry, had a point. And just for all of those on this call, I can't see 2 or 3 screens at once, so holding your hand up doesn't help. Put something in the chat. Thank you. Okay, Sheila. You're muted? No, you're unmuted. You're unmuted. I don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. One issue I've been having is trying to find descriptions for committees. I have, trying to recruit chairs, and they're like, well, what exactly is youth services committee? And I've looked on the international, I've gone to some different sites trying to find stuff, and I'm just not seeing it. Is there a guide that would help us so when we're trying to recruit members to serve on these committees, we can tell them, what it is? I mean, yes, membership is easy, but youth services, there's a lot of parts to youth services, and some of the other committees, I would just like a little guidance there.
On that, Sheila, and you're right, like membership and international service and Rotary Foundation are pretty prescribed. Youth service is different in every club.
Okay.
So that's why it's not prescribed. In some clubs, it's just providing scholarships to your local high school graduates. Some clubs have RILA, Rotaract, Interact, Rotaract, Youth Exchange. Some of the clubs have that spelled out in a different way. Maybe you and I can just have a chat about that, but every club describes their committee's responsibilities differently depending on the club culture.
And are there specific committees that we're supposed to have according to RI?
That would be prescribed by your club bylaws as to what you have to have. So that would dictate what committees you should have.
Okay. Thank you.
And what makes sense for the management of your club. Remember the mantra that we heard at PETS, there is no Rotary police. So you have to manage the club the way that works for your club.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sheila. Now, Megan had a question. Megan?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I'm a little new to the whole thing and I'm trying to figure everything out. So I was looking at citations today and it says 13 out of 23 for how many goals you have to choose. But I was also told today that maybe because of the circumstances that was changed to 3 out of 23 goals. I was just looking for clarification on that.
I will confirm that and get that out to everybody. I believe the citation criteria was reduced to 5 out of the 23 for this Rotary year.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've received several emails and I'm not sure whether I should be answering them as president-elect. Recently, I got an email saying that the dues were not paid yet by our club to, I think, Club Writer, or I'm sorry if I didn't say that right. But how would we know that we're supposed to, like, who normally gets the billings from the various entities to our clubs to be paid? Would they go to the treasurer that's on record, the secretary, or does it go to the president or president-elect? So I'm a little confused about what, like, I just received this email and I passed it on to our president because I'm assuming while she's in control and she, before year end, she should be responsible for that, not the president-elect. Just clarification.
Again, it depends on, I can't, yeah, if it's for your local newspaper subscription, it depends on who subscribed to it. If it's a Rotary International or a Rotary District invoice, that would be sent to the current club president and the current club treasurer, and both of them are usually copied on that. If you're referring to a club runner invoice, that normally is sent to whoever your club runner contact is assigned at club runner and between your club runner and the club. So
okay, that helps me because maybe I'm down there as the contact on club runner. I just wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, good, thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment if I could. I was really impressed with that idea of having a joint meeting with some international club, Zoom-wise, and I think that's a good idea. One of the things that the district could do, I think, to help, especially maybe help us to share good speakers that are speaking on Zoom meetings for one club. We don't have to have them drive around. They can just come online and we can access a lot more people than we have had access to before. So a list of those, or if clubs can share those names around in a collective way, I think that'd be very useful.
And thank you for that, Jim. I encourage you all to encourage your members. Governor Brad has started the Tuesday morning coffee chats. Yesterday morning, we had, I was surprised that there weren't more actually, but there was about 85 members from the district having coffee on Tuesday morning with Rotary International President-elect Holger Canuck. You can make that your club meeting for the week or make it your makeup for the week. Next week, the coffee chat is going to be with past RI Vice President Dean Roars. The week after, it's going to be current Rotary President Mark Maloney. So Brad has set up those 10 a.m. our time Zoom meetings every week until the end of this Rotary year, and I'll probably try to continue those.
And they're going to be recorded too. That's
yes,
right.
I believe so.
Right. It was good yesterday.
Yes, it was. And as I said, there is a Rotary International link to international club meetings. I heard of an idea, and I haven't started it yet, but I'm thinking about it, of clubs encouraging makeups by having their clubs complete a passport and attend 9 virtual meetings over the next 2 months or something, and provide the list of the virtual meetings that are available internationally. So if you think that's something we want to start off the Rotary year with, maybe that might be a way to get members engaged.
Jim, you can also look to some of those clubs you may have supported with international projects that you would not normally get a presentation from them because they're not going to travel to your club.
Yeah.
But if you've been overseas to another club, there may be representatives of that club or the club that was the sponsor club, and you can connect with them regarding your projects as well, or projects, depending on what side of the line you're on.
If the district can help us with that, with those, like the list and contact names, that'd be great.
Well, I'm thinking of your specific club.
Yes.
If you've done a project in a particular place, to contact them directly. But yeah, we'll see what we can do. I've made a note of that as well. And not sure, one of the thoughts I had was getting in touch with the editor of the Peace Arts Journal, and maybe we can seek some of that information and put it there as well.
Thank you.
Roger, you are muted, sir.
Sorry about that. Any other comments or issues that you want to raise right now? I don't see any on the chat, so I guess we're coming close to the end. I'll throw it for final remarks to Rod, and then finally for Carol to sum up. So
Thanks very much, Roger. So the one issue that I did want to touch on, and we won't spend a lot of time with it, I have a document that I will share with you. I will get Pat Bond to send you a copy of this document, which then you can go into in a little more depth as you have time to do. And it is a media crisis management plan, if you will, and some points that you want to consider. This applies equally whether it's a crisis within your club or it's a communication about how you're responding to COVID-19 or any other issue that may come up. Like anything, if you don't have a plan for what happens in a crisis, when the crisis arrives, it's just way too late. So I would commend this document to you. If you go through these points, make sure that you have somebody in your club that is prepared to deal with this. Make sure the club understands that there's only one spokesperson to the media or anybody publicly on any issue. This will also relate back to insurance concerns. You know, we talked insurance earlier. You don't want people making statements that might come back and create issues from an insurance perspective. You know, the media has a job to do. You owe it to the media to be polite to them, to answer questions where you can. But one of the things I always say at this point is, when you're speaking to the media, don't try and look smarter than you are. If you don't know the answer, don't try and answer. Just say, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll try and get it for you. And that's all you owe. You don't have to come up with some explanation. You just need to make sure that you're honest. If you don't know the answer, that's fine. So have a prepared statement. Make sure that you have the facts. Make sure that everything is clear there, so you're not just winging it. We see what happens when people stand at a lectern and try and wing it when the facts aren't necessarily at hand. So make sure that you're doing that. Create some key messages so that when you're responding to a crisis, you're always putting something up front about our concerns about the safety. If somebody's been injured, make sure that your statement starts with, you know, we're very concerned about injuries that have occurred, and we always take safety as one of our first things, and blah, blah, blah. Make sure that that statement is showing compassion for those that may be in difficulty because of what's happened. Again, the reporter's not going to be your friend. They shouldn't be your enemy either, but you want to make sure that you're organized and you don't get carried away. Keep it simple, keep it brief, make sure that you emphasize your key points, and you can always come back to your key point and restate it. Because then if they try and get the 30-second clip that makes you look foolish, you're always coming back to the point that you wanted to emphasize as part of your statement. And then do your follow-up as well. Monitor what's going on. If there's been a misrepresentation, contact the media directly, write letters to the editor if it's a publication. Make sure there's people online that can clarify what's going on. But here's some things that you'll want to think about as you become president of your club. And the key is, in that first group, convene a crisis management team. Okay, and so at the district level, there are people who can help you in crisis management. If your club runs into something that is potentially damaging to your club and to the district, There are folks at the Rotary District who can help you crafting some of these things, including legal advice and media advice and crafting responses. So it's there for you. Make sure you're using it. Make sure your club has somebody that understands how it works so that when a crisis occurs, you're not in crisis. With that, Roger, I'm going to thank everybody for participating on such a great level tonight. Some wonderful questions that we received. Obviously, an engaged and group of people that is really going to do the best job they can with their Rotary clubs in some challenging circumstances in which we find ourselves. So thank you, everyone, on my behalf for attending tonight. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out to me through the district website. Many of you already have my email, but feel free to contact me. And with that, I'll hand it back over to District Governor-elect Carol. Thank you.
The final word, Carol.
Thanks, Roger. And thank you, Rod. You know, both of you have stepped in and like so many Rotarians have around the world and just done an amazing job adapting to our new reality. So to this class of presidents-elect, I'm not sure if you like the term the meat and the sandwich group, but who knows, it might catch on. You're amazing. The work that's being done, I thank you, I applaud you. And from the sounds of the feedback, it looks like that we would be wanting to get together for a Q&A every couple of weeks. I'll try to figure out how to canvas what day of the week might work best for you, whether you want it evenings or a late Sunday afternoon, seeing as we're not going anywhere anyhow. As I said, the training sessions are going to be every Wednesday night for a number of weeks. So watch for the list of those upcoming sessions. I thank you. I applaud you. I appreciate your friendship, and I'm here for you. So please reach out to me if you need me. And back to you, Roger.
I want to thank everyone as your facilitator, and this session has been recorded, and I will throw it back to Rod once I process it, and then he will put it up on the website. So thank you and have a good night, and look forward to meeting all of you. Bye now.
Right.
Bye.